I have one. Oh, we got him one.
Oh, we
sent him
did?
down. Yeah. Yeah. How are you? We have a lot to do. We'll get through what we can get through, you know, we'll do what we can do. But that's a good sign that. Would be good.
I was gonna call it the neighbor of the face out. Well, some I'm sure. Right, also see.
Oh.
Yeah, so. I think it is.
What? I created a full list and I was sound. Here. There. This is, you know, this is everything that we from three people. And then search for you, me and Cindy. And then this is some stuff that I'm starting to get all the pictures from different statistical sources. And
Fair, now it's like.
it just feels a little bit anymore. It doesn't line out.
I think I
mean, I got a better point. Real. I'm reading this. You know, it's not. And there's not a lot of good open for business. Yeah, there would be something on there, but I couldn't. Yeah. Like some? Very bad.
You know, there's also, have you looked at the Weldon Center? And sent your link out to UV.
Oh,
And they have. I'll send the link. It's got
Saturday afternoon.
Oh, okay. I may have been looking at them, as I get some of that stuff. Yeah, the other thing, the other thing that's incredible is occasional really good Tom Rice. And it has, it's vast and all kinds of stuff. I'm not.
He really did see today. Downstairs back. And I want to thank him.
Oops, there's someone else who can't.
No, that was me.
That was you? Oh,
That was me,
6 o'clock.
yeah.
All right, 6 o'clock. Yay, okay, let me call this meeting of the Town of Montauk Planning Commission to order. Thank you for coming. Everybody, oops, I gotta be on the mic.
There you go.
There we go. I'm gonna turn it. Can I? Oh, I turned it off.
I can
Okay.
turn you down.
Okay.
What's your number? 2, 3. What's the number on your microphone, on your?
4. Yeah, turn it down a little bit. As my mother said, said, "My, you have a big voice for a little." I'd be standing looking up at her, telling her what I thought about things. Okay.
If that helps.
Call the meeting to order. I'd like to take attendance now, please.
Commissioner Adler,
Present.
Commissioner Holdren,
Present.
Commissioner Labadie, Commissioner McGowan,
Present.
Commissioner Temple,
He is on vacation, so he's absent.
Commissioner Weitzel,
Present.
and Chairperson Greer.
Present.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay, I'd like to have a motion to approve the 5 May minutes, and then there are a couple of things that I want to comment on them. So we have a motion to approve. Okay.
Me.
Jim, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, very good. Thank you. On the minutes, I would like to assignments of responsibility for plan topics, that actually happened towards the end of the meeting. And so what has happened is that Jim and John, am I remembering correctly, are working on zoning, land use, and those issues. Paul and Jeff are working on economic stuff. Cindy's trying to get a hold of is working with the existing plan as her first act to, and then we'll probably be moving on to other things, but is taking responsibility for going through that to see what has been done and so we can evaluate the current plan. And then I'm working on demographics, maps, and some related material like that to get things started. So that takes care of that. That's my only other.
Excuse me, Casey, you omitted history. Paul and I under.
Oh, that's right.
History,
Right.
and I think Paul was working on economic
Yeah,
vitality also.
yeah. Paul and
Jeff.
Jeff are doing economic
Yeah.
stuff. Okay. So that's my only change revision to the minutes. Anybody have any other comments they want to make on the minutes? You're looking thoughtful there, James.
Well, we need to approve the minutes
Oh, yes, that's
As-
coming up.
as amended.
Okay, well, we will do that. But do you have anything else you wanted to add, though?
No,
No? All right, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I move.
Can I have a second on that? John seconds. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. So we have the revised minutes. So Greg Temple had a long planned vacation. And so he is in Maine right now, where it's really cold. So much for his leaving the heat of the shore. But he asked me to read a little statement, if I can find it. Debbie, I may have to take it back from you. I thought I had 2 copies of it. He wanted to introduce himself. Can I get it back from you? Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, no, I got it. It was just buried. Okay. So Greg has asked me to read this, and Debbie has a copy to put in the minutes. This is from Greg.
Thanks.
Okay. I would like to apologize for not attending what would be my first planning commission meeting. Therefore, I asked Casey if she would read a short statement into the record on my behalf. I am happy and quite settled with my decision to keep my appointment to the Planning Commission. At a time when development is happening or being planned all around us, this body has a chance to shape land use policy, both residential and commercial, in a way that will keep the local economy vital and growing while maintaining the integrity and character of Onancock. My particular interest is stormwater management. Most of the town is surrounded by water. To me, the creeks and their tidal marshlands are the soul of our town, and we are the stewards. It is our obligation, when considering any land use issues, to incorporate the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act and all the best management practices for mitigating the impact of stormwater runoff into our creeks and for flood control. When I took the water steward certification course through Virginia Tech, any discussion on any topic always involved the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. Any land use planning that we undertake as a commission without understanding the CBPA and its regulations is planning blindly. So while on vacation, I intend to take the opportunity to spend time reading the CBPA and overlaying it on the current comprehensive plan, looking for any edits or changes to discuss at our next scheduled meeting. I look forward to working with all of you, and thanks to all the citizens who took the time to come and participate. That's from Greg. And since he's going to be up there freezing, he might as well read the CBPA. There we go. Okay. Moving on to the agenda. under new business. We actually have a number of things going on, a list of action steps in the current comprehensive plan. And Paul has a document to share that talks about some of his thoughts on economic planning. We also have Cindy's work and a number of other things. So I think we're not going to spend time talking about the timeline right now. Although I would say if anybody's got any other progress to report, then is already on the agenda. Go ahead and share it now. Nope. Okay. So now what we have, the next step for us is item 7, the discussion or list of questions relating to the rezoning application by Atlantic Group and Associates, Inc. Jim McGowan, Cindy and I have developed a list of questions for them. You've got a copy out there on your seat. We have 16 questions listed so far, and I invite members of the public, when you look at those, if you think of others, to please send them along to us. So I don't know that we want to go over these in detail, but they basically have to do with environmental mitigation, traffic, the nature of the units involved, the number of the units involved, vegetation and stormwater, and asks questions about the timeline as well. What I'm inclined to do when the Planning Commission feels comfortable with this list of questions is to develop it as part of a letter that would be attached and go to them. What do you think of that, Matt? Yeah, so what we will do is we will send this to them. We can sort of have it a little better organized topically. I can get it so it's a little better organized topically. But what I would also like to say to them is that they should be aware that we are involved in comprehensive planning right now, and that planning involves a discussion of land use and zoning. So they just need to be aware that there is a process going on that will certainly have an impact on how quickly we can respond to them. Because I do think we want to feel like we're comfortable with the any changes that we want to get approved and made. I just think it's fair to give them some kind of a timeline, but it's not going to be probably even in the next 6 months, I would say, maybe 6 months. Any thoughts on that from any of you guys? And Matt, you have any thoughts on that? Yeah, I think they should just need to know what the work is that's going on. Do you have any thoughts or additions you want to make on that? And that I think can go out. Do you want to send it under Fletcher's signature? You want me to sign it? How do you want to handle this? Okay, maybe what we'll do is we'll make it the Planning Commission will send it and sign it. And would you all like to sign it, or shall I sign it on your behalf?
You could.
Yeah, okay, all right. So let's talk for a moment about these questions and see if you see anything that you would like to add or change. You may also send me notes or drop by, stick stuff in my mailbox at home, whatever, for these for these list of questions.
Well, my compliments to the 3 of you for questions 1, 2, and 15, because those were my major questions.
Yeah.
To start with, I have no concept of credibility and what can we see. I did go to the Atlantic site and just sort of looked, and it seems that they're packagers or I don't want to use the term packagers, but development packagers is what they are.
Yeah.
And that they're not the actual builders themselves. They then sell that
Sell the package of permits.
to somebody else. So
Okay,
just now, we want to verify that.
okay.
But, and that also leads back to 1, 2, and 15.
Okay.
On question 5, I thought he stated when he made his presentation that all the units would be for purchase.
I'm not saying we can't ask
He did.
again.
He did.
Well, this was to get this in writing,
Right.
get a written response back. So I
Okay.
didn't want to
Okay.
leave anything out.
Yeah.
But it does bring the question, if someone owns it
Can they rent?
privately, can they rent it?
Right.
And can they do short-term rentals? You said there would be a homeowners association, so
Right.
that would be, up to the town approval and the home, whether or not the homeowner association would allow it.
What I put in there is I don't understand the formula for affordable housing, so I want him to explain that a little bit further. It sounded to me when he was talking about median income, especially as I'm looking at these statistics that I've been assembling on the town, even twice median income and stuff like that is pretty low. So so that's why I wanted to get clarification on what the formula is that he's using for affordability. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, well, as you go through it, you guys, probably will have thoughts. So what I would like to do is pull this together in a couple weeks and get the letter together. I can go have Nat take a look at it. We can make sure everybody's happy with it. And then it can go out to them. So if there's anything that you want to add to this, I also say to the public who's attending, if you look at these questions and you see things that are not addressed, let me know. Okay, and then we will add those questions. Okay. So any other questions or comments on this? All right, well, so we've got a step forward with this, so that's good. The second thing on the item is something that I'm working on that relates to the comprehensive plan and will, I think, certainly inform some of the decisions that we're making, but also will be included as an appendix, I think, when I get it done. And what I'm doing is really trying to figure out what the town looks like economically, and from an education standpoint and in terms of housing. And as I put this together, I'm trying to compare it with Accomack all the time. And I was not always, they're not always together, apples and oranges, but when I could, I did. And there's a couple of things I want to call to your attention. One is that almost a full third of the town is African-American or multiracial. So that was a statistic that surprised, in fact, more than a third. It's higher than for the county, than what the average is for the county. So the other thing that I discovered was we're slightly younger than the rest of the county. And there are more kids under 18 in this town than I sure thought. Right. So that was also very interesting to find out. Another thing that surprised me, apart from the median household income, was that there were 32% of the households in this town have incomes under $35,000 a year. So moderate to poverty is a real issue in relation to the town, and 30% of kids and 23% of seniors are actually living under the poverty level in the town. It's like the invisible on Hancock. One thing I thought was really interesting was how high our post-grad rate was, that 27% of the town has at least a master's degree and above that. So that was also intriguing to find out. We have a double the county rate of bachelor's degrees. I also was interested to see, and I kept looking at this and trying to, because I didn't believe it, and I kept trying to look at it different ways. And this is still regard this as a draft. So I will correct myself as I do this, but that we have such a high rate of vacant units, and this is of 2020. That vacant housing in the community, vacant building is a significant part of the town. Now, some of these, since this data was developed, I know that the grant that went to Northeast has been dealing with some derelict and abandoned housing. So that does not take that into account. But one of the things I was surprised is even taking that into account, we have an issue with vacant and abandoned housing in the community, especially since there's a housing shortage. So I was sort of surprised by the size of that. I also was surprised, especially given the for sale signs on Market Street, which don't represent anything but Market Street, was that the median value of houses in the community was 239, which meant that half of them are below that. So one of the things that I hope to do, and actually I think this data commons that I just found actually has a map of the town that is organized by real estate values. And this is a way for us to look at and think about poverty, for example, or where special needs are. I would venture to say that there are some pockets that we walk past and don't realize that we're actually looking at a pocket of poverty where they may not have the means to deal with their own housing very well. I wanted to look at disability and I was not able to find it at the town level. And without health insurance, I wasn't able to find it at the town level, but I would expect that it's probably about the same without health insurance. And I'm starting to read about some other public health issues, and a lot of them don't relate very much to the town, but some of them do. So at any rate, so I'm starting to get a picture of the community that surprised me. It really did surprise me. And I regret that I was that surprised. It shows my own naivete, among other things. I also want you to note that given the size of our town, the size of the population of the zip code, right, that it's at least double, a little over double what's in the town proper. So the Onancock zip code is a bigger area than we thought. And we sometimes see the comments from the Onancock zip code come into town council to talk about things. So anyway, so this is what I'm finding out so far. And I will be happy to take advice on where I can find other statistics. And
I've got some questions.
Sure.
What's the source of the info that you're getting?
United States Census.
Which census? The community survey?
No, some of it's 2020 and some of it is community survey. And I started to note where it was community survey. And what I'll do is make a point of doing a better job on that. Like, for example, the households with computer is the community survey. So they're all, it's all sources that are, it's a variety of sites that deal with the US Census and interpret it in different ways. And then I found another source called Data Commons, which is a digital analysis of Accomack County. What I'm looking at is specifically Accomack County and Onancock. So I will, if you'd like me to footnote where everything came from.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I was going to mention that maybe the Department of Social Services could offer you some data that would be helpful. Also, I'm interested to know the definition of poverty that they're using, because I have read that in some of the federal poverty statistics, they're not including government benefits. So there are sources of income that would not be included, of course, if those are explicitly excluded.
It's interesting. I don't know, because this is census data, so we'll just have to look at it. We'll just have to see if we can figure out what the question was. Right.
And try to find the federal definition of poverty.
I
Because I
did
would
find
guess
it.
that the Census Bureau is using that, whatever the federal definition might be.
The definition now for a single person living alone is ridiculous. It's about $15,000.
They don't tell you what's included in that.
Right.
Mm-mm.
So I think the thing to do is to just keep digging on this stuff. I'm not telling you that this is definitive. This is a draft.
But I think it's going to help us get a picture of the town. And what I'll do is make sure there's a bibliography on here, and I'll try to footnote where individual things
I'd
came
also
from.
be
interested in the definition of vacant, because we have so
Right.
many houses that people don't occupy year round. They're owned, but they're only using them a few months of the year. If those are counted as vacant, then that's
That's a good
represented. Do you know, are you aware of that? Do you have any idea about that? Okay,
And if the American Community Survey is counting vacant houses, then it could be a much bigger area, like the zip code area as opposed
Yeah.
to the town.
right,
So that's an important distinction. What
good.
is the American Community Survey counting? Because that's done I think every 5 years.
Yep, yeah.
But it's, it's like a poll, kind of a
Yeah, it is.
random poll, but it's supposed to be pretty good.
I thought it was interesting because I thought they mostly seemed to be, when I was looking at the other statistics, they seemed like they were just following, right, they seemed like they were pretty close most of the time. So, all right, well, I will continue to work on this, and what I'll do is create numbered, I'll number the sources that I'm gonna use, and then I can give you a 1, 2, 3, whatever, so you know where they come from. And I started to try to get into more economic statistics, but then I figured that's you, Paul.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, I was gonna ask, does the county have any information
A lot of
that would
information.
be useful to us in this?
That's a good question, where they might have some detailed information. This is another one where, I've still got to go over and talk to the GIS guy, but I'll just have to, I'll go over to planning.
Yeah, they would have assessed value. The county assessor would have assessed values. So
Yeah.
that would be an interesting thing to look at.
Yep,
I don't know
Okay.
if they count vacancies or not.
that's a good question. So
And
we
that's
have,
something we could do. We could do,
Yeah.
drive around town and tick off the ones
Yeah.
that are obviously vacant.
We just have a definition.
okay, so we need to create a definition.
Because otherwise I'm at 6 to Hill Street from,
Part
13.
timers.
no, vacant,
Mhm,
just, but I have no idea if I'm counting correctly,
mhm.
right?
I see, there are some that may be being worked on, some that seem to be stuck, some that are in a mysterious state. So that's an interesting issue.
We just need a definition,
Okay.
so we know.
Well, think about what the definition of a vacant house is. Help me out on this, and I'll see if I can find what the county or whoever says is a vacant house. And then we'll follow their definition, I guess, for the sake of following the
Yeah,
conventions.
The ANPDC has generally been the provider of census data,
Yeah,
and they probably know more about it than anybody. Sure, so they might be able to help advise you on
okay,
definitions and that type of.
okay, good. So do you guys have any questions or comments about this, or anything you'd like to see on this that I should try to find? Let me know, right? I'm sure I'm gonna see you when I walk the dog, so I'll.
It's interesting. I don't, many of us really know the makeup of the town,
That's what I
I'm
thought
learning
too.
After almost 4 years here, and I'm always intrigued by the vacant or part-time residents. There's a lot of that in town. I
Mm-hmm,
mean, if these people were all here, I think it'd be a whole different tempo, but there's not. They're out of town for
mm-hmm,
most of the year. And anywhere you go,
yep,
I mean, I live over on Johnson, but walk around anywhere in town, you just point.
no,
them
I
out.
know.
And not that they're all falling in or they don't look good, but like, where are they?
And it could be that, we wanna try to come up with do we have a definition of derelict house? No, I'm serious. Do you know, Matt, do we have a definition of? Oh, okay.
Right.
Just found something on the,
Can you please speak up? I'm having trouble hearing you, Jim, and thank you.
I just found something, Virginia Code of Virginia. .2.907.1. And this is from the city of Lynchburg, but it says a definition of a derelict or vacant home is a building that has been continuously vacant for over 12 months regardless of its owner.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if you would be able to figure out if it was vacant or not,
Right.
you know, in terms of whether somebody actually lived there. You know, I don't.
Is that specific to Lynchburg?
Well, it says that as defined by the Code of Virginia, blah, 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 and the city of Lynchburg. This just happened to come up where those two things
Yeah.
join.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure we can find a code for the state that probably gives
15.2 what?
15.2.907.1. And then Lynchburg's a separate thing.
That's the code citation.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'll go Google when it works.
I know, me too, me too. Okay, anything else you guys want to add to this that I'm looking at or what I'm thinking about here? Okay,
I don't think I have a copy of that.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have a copy.
yeah, everybody got a copy. Here you go. There's another
missed one.
copy.
Okay.
I think we'll
Copy.
Oh, I thought you got one. I thought I gave everybody two things.
I don't have that either.
How did that happen? Cause I printed out a bajillion of them. You got
Yeah, I just have one.
Yeah, you got it. You've got it? Okay. I thought for sure I handed them out to everybody. Did you not get one?
No, he needs one.
Okay,
You want to send it?
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. I've got a PDF. I'll send it to you.
And I
Okay.
will presume that as we start fleshing things out, that we'll either request or need more data to,
Mhm.
you know, to make sure, one, we're on the right track, and two, we're reflecting what is better,
Right.
right?
Yeah, so I think what we can do is every month I'll see what I can come up with that's new and refines this, and we'll see what we want to add as we move along.
Yeah, and as the text develops,
Yes,
support of the text,
yes.
so.
Cause I really see this as being a day, you know, in the form of a table like this. I think it'll have much more impact than if we bury the statistics in the text.
Oh, agree,
Yeah,
agree.
It would be good to have a narrative explaining the sources.
In part of my text that I sent, there was one of the things is changes to the current table that talks about,
mhm.
you know, land use and what have you. Same type kind of thing.
Yep. Okay. Good. Well, we're off to a start on that, so that's good. Okay. Actually, it's time for some public comment. If anybody's got a comment, I mean, I'm already talking to you, so anybody got anything else to add at this point relating to the new business or questions for us?
Probably is for you. Maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, you mentioned someone was going to be building 200 units of workforce housing. You said that at a town council meeting, but you didn't, at that time, you were not comfortable saying who it was or where it was. Is that what we're talking about with, the latest Scarborough request?
No, that one, the request that the Carbaugh has before planning commission right now is to take, I don't know the better way to say it, but the cornfield as you come into town next to Cook's Car Wash.
Yeah.
That cornfield and make that into 100-unit townhouse development. So that's what the 15 or 16 questions were pertaining to.
And what were those other? 200.
I think the other request from him, if you're thinking about him appearing before town council, is that what you're thinking about? Oh, okay.
Manager's report mentioned that. I mean, it truly was just kind of placed on the table, but at that time he didn't Nat, you can speak to this, you didn't have a lot of information. I was just curious if, this carve-off project was that,
No.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is a whole nother, Patsy, there's in the packet for last month, you'll see the drawing that he did of what their visualization is. So, the little, you know, you have to really look at it, but there, you can see it. Any other comments?
Just a question.
Oh, Patsy, I'm sorry, would you please identify yourself?
Oh, Patsy Feldhausen, Ames Street,
Okay.
Priscilla Hard Market Street. Are there any other developments on the horizon that we know of other than this project?
I don't have any open application.
No, there's no open applications, that's all. I think it's something we have to prepare for. I think development pressure is something that we have to prepare for. I mean, as Dana Simpson said last month, instead of them telling us what the town should look like, we have to tell them. So I think that the comprehensive plan and looking at the zoning ordinances and stuff will go some way towards helping us think about that. And I also think that as the comprehensive plan is developed, that there'll be a lot of opportunities for public input about issues like development. So that's that'll be starting in September.
There was some comment about a workforce housing development. And I want to say there was talk of it being small houses. I think it was off Marshall Street, like a gravel road. And I'm wondering if that is still under consideration.
I know there's a developer looking at that land,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no application filed.
Yeah, at this point, what happens is we're kind of in a position where when we get an application, it's really just the first phase. As I'm coming to understand, when we get an application like this Carbaugh thing, it is really just a first step in a long process. And so that, it's if no application has even come in, I don't know, Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, the Carbaugh proposal is not an application.
Oh, that's
They haven't
right.
applied for anything. They're looking for an idea if the town is interested in doing that. That was what he asked for.
Yeah, I guess that was it.
And we asked these questions, some of which we asked at the meeting, but it would be nice to get them back in writing from him. But there's no application yet on that project.
Zoning change, yeah.
There's a zoning change application.
He has
Yeah.
applied for zoning change?
Yeah, that's what that was.
Has he paid for an application?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, so
But
his
we-
application was for the zoning change.
Well, then we need a
Number
staff
2.
report and we need to schedule a public hearing.
I understand.
I understood it to just be an inquiry, general inquiry, okay?
Me too.
No, so I would like to get, before we establish set a public hearing and stuff, I would really like to get the letter to him and get things in writing. And then we can go
Well,
through that
yeah.
process if that's acceptable.
I'm happy to work with you, Matt, on reviewing it and. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay,
I do have one other quick question,
sure.
really administrative in nature, and it's for you folks. I know, are joint meetings required from planning and the town council? Is that
Oh, are you
something-
talking about the thing?
The last one that was
Mhm.
done, I come to these meetings enough to see the little powwow around this table and then you're up here. Is that necessary? Or can you just have your meetings? Come to your conclusions, bring it to the council like through you, Casey, or is everybody required to sit here and It doesn't seem kind of awkward. I
It
mean,
did feel awkward, I'll tell you. It's
I mean,
awkward.
it looks
It's sort of
pretty
awkward.
here, but, you know,
I don't know whether it's
saying-
required or whether it's, yeah, it is required.
Required that both entities have public hearings. That's a matter of fact, the
Mhm.
Public
the
hearing.
Hancock has always sort of made a habit of having them as joint public hearings, just to simply save time.
And that's allowed by the state code. They could be separate or together. Specifically allowed in the code.
It's been-
I have one more question. So in the case of Atlantic Group, what comes first? So they want a zoning change. Do they apply to the town to build this development? Or do they request a zoning change? What happens first?
The zoning change is gonna is what has to happen first.
Why would that be? I'm trying to understand.
Well, you don't want them
Because
to
if they don't
build-
apply-
They own the plot, but it is zone B2. It's zoned for business. So it has to be changed. It has to be changed to something that would allow this kind of multi-unit thing. And one of the things that we have to look at is the R2 designation sufficient? Do we need to think about another designation for dense, more dense development? So the first order of business is figuring out the zoning situation. But I think before we, there's no way around this being convoluted. From my understanding, and, we'll collect more information from him, but then, we're in the process of looking at zoning more broadly, so it may take a little bit. But, and then we make a recommendation, but town council is the entity that approves it, right? We're advisory. And hopefully we're just so with it and so smart that they'll that they'll go with it, right, Cindy? Optimistic.
So another question for you, Matt, just to get information, is there some expectation of timeline for a zoning a change application or not?
No,
Okay,
there's not.
okay.
Because they understand, I had a long chat with them about the process that we're just starting. And the answer, the question that they're being asked, or you're being asked is, do you believe that that cornfield would be better suited as a B2 or residential? You can't look at the townhouses, you can't look at the apartments, you can't look at any of that. You have to say, for land use, is this better served as
Mhm.
residential or B2?
Right.
That's the application that's on the table.
Thank you.
Well, given that, Matt, do you think any of our questions should be eliminated when we're asking about the number of units? Okay, but you'll,
Yeah, but we'll work through it together.
yeah,
and
we'll
I
get through
think
it. We'll
if
figure it out.
we End up with questions that are sort of in the weeds that don't necessarily apply to the application. We can still ask them as a secondary point of curiosity. And I
Yeah.
would,
Yeah, really.
I mean, I still, that's a lot of units.
It's a lot of units.
Well, they
and it's very
presented it
creative.
as they would like to rezone the property and develop 129 units
Right.
with a variance, which I mentioned is not appropriate. That's not how it's done. We would have to allow that, we would have to rezone it and also create an amendment to allow that type of use. It's not something that would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals as a variance.
For
Right.
than a small house would, so we would have to come up with a different zoning.
Right. I mean, we could wind up with an R3, right? That, yeah,
But if they're,
basically.
but if they're applying for a rezoning, then the decision is yes or no. So
Mhm.
that's, sounds like what the first step would be. What, like you said, should this be residential? Is it better use residential than business? But the clock should be ticking. There's usually like a 60-day requirement to turn around a zoning application. It should be in the-
He's not raised right now. He understands that we're going through.
Yeah,
a process
okay.
without important.
But we need to follow the timeline that's in the zoning ordinance. So we're not caught short in saying it's approved because we didn't, process it within the required timeframe.
The problem is though, that we could theoretically, I mean, R2 may not really be applicable to the development, right? So what do? Approve it for R2 and then it'll have to be revised to be an R3, if we wind up needing an R3 for dense development. Right? We don't have another category that would encompass what he wants to do.
Right.
The way we did it when we used the pump stations for HRSD,
Okay,
they all had to be rezoned to IU, which is industrial utilities. We went through each of those parcels and created the definition of what an IU is. And then after that, then we could rezone them to that designation.
okay, all right. Well, I'm starting to see a path here. Okay. Let's see if we can do some kind of correspondence with them to get some more information, and then we can look at the code to see what's the timeline for required timeline for responses. Then we can sort of figure it out from there. So, okay. All right, any other comment? All right, thank you, guys. Old business. So, what I thought we would do is, oh, wait a minute, don't we have your? Oh, no, I actually doubled back over you. Do you want to discuss, I'm sorry, since this is me bleeping over something, and I apologize for that. Do you want to talk about your work so far on looking at steps in the what the action steps in the comprehensive plan and what's been achieved so far?
Honestly, there's not a whole lot to discuss, unfortunately. All I did was create a document that's part of the agenda for tonight that just pulls out the goals and actions so that as we go through each of these sections, we can update the actions and goals to see if we've accomplished any, what the status might be. In going through it, I realized that I knew less than I thought I did, in that I'm not certain where some of these projects are, and I need Matt's help to update those. I think we have accomplished some of the things. Let me see if I kept any notes in here that would tell me what I.
One that it's underway, it's completed, it's underway.
Is that in the Google Doc? Or it's just
It was just a Word doc.
a Word doc? Okay.
The one that I did feel like we could strike is, I didn't number the pages, but it's under transportation goals and actions. The actions arrange with VDOT to bring curb cut ramps to ADA standards. And then it said completed summer 2021. So I'm not sure why that's still in there. So that kind of thing, just going through and looking to see where we are with each of these. Some of them may not be pertinent, some may, all of them may, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Actually, Paul and I did work on the action steps for the history part, historic resources, goals and actions. And I think that's in your document, isn't it, Paul?
No, it correlates. It supports it. But no, I did not print that out separately.
Yeah, and I don't think I did either.
My apologies.
I think I forgot to. But we talked in the vein of, well, at first I was thinking we would kind of begin seeing if we have any consensus around the need for historic guidelines in the downtown section, commercial only. This would not impact, at least in my view, would not impact the residential areas. I think Paul is in agreement with that because he's
Yes.
nodding his head. But what we would like to avoid is the older historic businesses in downtown being torn down and
parking garages put there or whatever, things like that. So is there consensus for doing that? I think we've got to discuss it at length, particularly with all the building owners of the businesses, of course. Some of this is underway, signage for the downtown area. I know that's underway. Walking plan of historic properties, that
Right.
was one of the suggestions. And Paul also emphatically felt that the economic goals needed to be incorporated across all of the plans so that we're not siloed in particular discrete actions, but all of them coordinate with the economic goals. Oh, have I left anything out that you can remember?
No, actually, you're doing a much better job of summarizing than I would. One thing I will mention, and this is how I'm out on a limb here, and that is I was reading about I was thinking about the history, and I was reading about the fire in Hancock in 1877 that triggered the creation of the fire department. And it was just slightly down the street, and what I had suggested, and Cynthia correctly just nodded her head and let me go on. And that was, it would be nice to maybe start thinking about a walking tour or plaques or something so that when people are in town, we can identify things that happened and buildings that are somehow significant to the history of the town. And that sort of emphasizes the historic charm and nature of Hancock and may give us a little bit of a bump. And
We do have a walking tour on the town website, but we could certainly amplify that.
yeah, that's what I
Add to
was,
it.
Here for interpretive signs, so like the one you were talking about.
okay. That was just a blue sky.
Yeah, well, one thing I would say in relation to interpretive signage is the shore history is back up to full staffing. And they have a new, young and extremely energetic curator / collection manager. And she's on a fast track. She came from Illinois, or Indiana rather, and she's on a fast track to learn the town, but she has a lot of exhibit experience. So she's somebody who could really help. I think would be good to have them involved in generating that material.
Absolutely.
So,
One other thing that struck us in the existing plan, it's the action under historic resources, goals and action is make information available to residents regarding tax credits and other benefits. Add a central point of information that teaches the history of the town and the area. And we thought perhaps that could be the focus of the Welcome Center. And that's already in our plan, so.
so the copy that has, do you have a copy from Matt that has things marked? That what's been done and what hasn't been done, or you only have a copy, Matt? Okay, do you think you could, just use crossouts or something and, okay, good, and then we'll look at it. I think it'll make more sense then because we'll have a better sense about where we are on some of this stuff.
Would you include me in that, Matt? Since Cynthia and I are actually trying to support each other. Or actually, I'm trying to support Cynthia.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna start with that. Is there anything else you want to report or mention about this? Okay,
Man, but, I'm looking at the goals, housing goals and actions. Do you plan to talk about that?
not today, but we will, believe me,
Oh,
not today. I mean, basically, this is the document that, this is the document from 2021. And what we need to do is get off at what has been done. And then, given our deliberations and collection of information and stuff, and also our conversations with people in the town, we have to figure out what things we want to hang on to, what things are not really what the town government should be involved in doing, right? Things like that. So believe me, housing is a high priority, I think.
how do we determine, find out what people in town want?
Well, starting in mid-September, we're gonna convene meetings. We can only have two of us at a time because otherwise it'll be a public meeting, but is really neighborhood gatherings. Right? And get people together and talk and find out what their concerns are and what they're thinking about. I've sort of already started talking to Thelma and Clinton and his brother, although his brother lives right out of town, about how we're going to engage the Northeast neighborhood. And that may involve several of us coming and having gatherings at a church. So we're gonna, I think the key is to, especially in certain instances, to go where people are. Right? And, I would really prefer that kind of thick description in a way with, whoever is leading that, creating some kind of notes or minutes or recording the meeting. We'll figure that out. We've got a little time to do that. We decided we needed to have something that people could respond to in writing, where we have some of our ideas and some of the things that we're thinking about out that people can respond to, rather than it just be sort of a blank saying, what do you want? Right. So this will start in no sooner than mid-September. Gives us time to kind of, as you can see, we're feeling our way along right now as we get going. So Casey.
We're doing that now. So I'm wondering, what venues and when these things will happen.
Right.
They did impact, but.
Casey, my only concern with one or two planning commission members hearing the comments is that then the rest of us don't hear them.
Right.
So to me, would be better if we were all present. There's no reason we can't meet somewhere different that I know
That's true.
of, as long as we announce it.
That's true.
Special public meeting.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I like to hear it for myself.
And we can also use Zoom, right, as a recording device. And I would like to have that evidence.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Patsy was saying also, that, what evidence we have, and then it allows us not to have to rely on someone's interpretation. But yeah, I'm all for a special meeting with
Okay.
record.
Now, sometimes that might mean, you guys, so that it doesn't go on forever, meeting a couple times in a month.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
It
I
won't-
don't see anybody going.
Well, it won't go on forever. I mean, that's the trick.
Right, that don't,
I mean,
right,
it may be 2 months or a
Okay.
month and a half of a lot of special meetings, but then it's over.
Okay, we'll see if we can make that work. We'll work on that.
We'll make it work.
All right,
We'll be developing a schedule for the meetings. So you'll know about it.
yeah. Yeah, like I said, we're in the process of learning each other and learning all this stuff. So,
Make sure if you don't do it here, we discuss the tech.
right, I know.
Absolutely.
And Zoom meeting, basketball court.
Right.
Right.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So do we have any other discussions of assignments or progress so far? Paul, do you want to report on your work on the document that you handed out on economic stuff?
Well, I brought it so people could read to see where I'm starting to go. And that I would, look for feedback on that. Simply stated that in the economic development section of the 2021 comprehensive plan, the number of economic development goals, let me read them to you. I'm done. And so there were none. And so, I thought blank slate,
Yeah.
and so, that's really where I started. And looking at more of an approach to, as we've already mentioned, that, and next time I'll make more of these, I apologize, that looking at things like making sure the areas all articulate so that we aren't siloed, housing and transportation and economic development and, historical development, everything, that they do articulate with each other. That for the economic development goals, I did want to think about adding text to emphasize promoting the historic character of Anacog and protection, because that seems to be a significant draw from the prior, as stated by the prior comprehensive plan. Updating zoning information. We already know that for new goals, I just added allowing more types of business in B2 zoning. Cynthia and I spoke about that. And we may need to revise ordinances and have that happen, but that's a possibility. We may want to think about creating tax incentives by industry or code or a sector to attract businesses to Anacog. That part of the sub rosa for me in all of this is that we need to sell Anacog as a place for businesses to want to be. And that trying to throw that bag together, if you will, create an economic development dashboard on the main page, a single link away from the main page on the town website that would provide information about what we as a town offer, what our characteristics are, what advantages we have, if we have tax incentives, historic preservation incentives, a directory of available buildings, which is part of the vacancy conversation, information like, we have a community college nearby, we have a small airport nearby. How proximate are we to large population areas? So to make it so that we're a desirable location. And then information about tax rates, et cetera. And then the fourth one I did really was, I'll just read it to you, survey community for economic development suggestions and input, solicit input from an Anacog business and civic association, Main Street, and other relevant community organizations. As a goal, it's just, this would be both part of what we do to begin with, and then a recurrent ongoing, it's not a 5-year plan that we write and ignore for 5 years, but rather it's like a strategic plan that we're continually updating and dusting off. So that's as far as I've gotten so far. And so I'll have those more articulated, but input, the planning commission's email addresses are, on the Anacog page. And, you have any comments, suggestions or anything, don't hesitate. Just let me know.
Do you think we should ask OBCA or something to specifically come to one of our existing meetings over the next month or two and just start to have some conversations with them, ask them to come to our meeting and have time for a conversation
Right.
on that? Okay.
And Main Street too.
And Main Street, yeah.
Well,
You have 2 members of Main Street right here.
Yeah.
Right, we do.
Yeah.
We do. And also I'd like to have meetings with the organizations separately. Just because sometimes in rooms, as we all know with family, some people don't voice opinions because someone else is there. And I would just like to make it so that all voices are heard, or at least have the opportunity to be heard independently. So, I would do an Anacog Business and Civic Association separate
Yep.
from Main Street.
Yep.
Doesn't mean we don't have a final meeting with everybody, but we have those separate ones, so.
Right.
Well, I'd like to learn what they're doing and how their goals support what we're trying to do,
Right,
vice versa.
right. Okay. Well, there seems to be a consensus that that's a good idea. Would you like to try to bring in OBCA sooner rather than later, or Main Street sooner rather than later? Do
Different.
you want to start, that part of the conversation?
Whoever's available first,
Sure.
Okay.
ask
I'm
one if they're
gonna
not
go
available.
BCA, their meeting's tomorrow, if I remember right. Am I right about that, you guys? Yes, okay, well, let's go and see if we can get them, because they'll probably have pretty good attendance because they're thinking about ice cream and other stuff. They're thinking about the ice cream festival. And then we could do Main Street next. And then we'll, start to, I just think bring in one at a time, but in a public setting, but let's have the conversation without having, multiple organizations who might have somewhat different goals. Okay. Okay, in terms of economic development. Is there anybody else who needs to be brought in terms of economic development?
Economic Development Authority.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking
Well,
too.
yes, that's a good idea, isn't it? They have a meeting coming up. I'll
What
go.
What do they do?
The EDA?
Yeah.
Would you like to define the EDA's function, Matt?
Well, economic development is the same as every other EDA. They seek grants that can be used as either micro or macro lending institutions. They can come back and relend those dollars.
But aren't they required because of some statute? Is there some program in town that requires them to be
They were
in
required
existence?
to be in place because of the grant associated with the Lilliston building.
Right, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Town can't work on money.
okay. That's,
So the
yeah,
EDA is.
okay. That, I knew there was something like that.
Mhm.
Thanks.
So they actually have cash. Or they will have cash. I don't think they've got a lot of cash right now, but they will have cash. And so we were interested in something like a small business startup lab or something, a space where people could start with reduced taxes and maybe collaborating with the business faculty at the community college or something.
Casey, before you blue sky too much, there are restrictions on how the money can be used that will be paid back.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be used for a similar project to the Lilliston building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That particular
line.
money. Yeah.
ECT
right.
is relaxing quite a lot.
Are they? Oh,
Yeah.
good. Excellent.
Well,
So-
that's why it'd be nice to hear
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
what they do, what they can
All
and
right,
can't
we'll bring
do,
in EDA
and
too.
how we can work with them.
Okay.
There are a number of nonprofits around town that
Yep.
grants and do various things. Donna Sanford Smith's work, got a number of things that she does and at a pretty high level.
Yeah,
And the Stark and Hancock School, the pavilion's gonna open this summer. A lot of grants, a lot of money that's flowing through that. That's where the ice cream's gonna be served.
yeah.
That's over at the school, so, and there are others, farmers market. So each one of those.
Okay, so we should have one for,
Oh,
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah.
So it looks like we might have 4 meetings that talk with economic units. One would be OBCA, one would be Main Street, one would be EDA, and then one would be nonprofits. Yeah. Okay,
sure.
all right.
And
EDA's meeting on the 18th.
Yeah, I'll
They
be,
don't meet often, but their next one is.
Yeah.
the 18th.
okay.
and there still may be other stakeholders that we,
Well, hopefully they'll get on board when they, okay, okay. All right, well, so let's see if we can bring in OBCA first and then we'll we'll just sort of move down the line if that sounds good. And with the nonprofits, I'll need some guidance on that. So. Okay. Okay, I'm wondering what other, the theater.
yeah.
Number three.
Yeah, there's a theater and also the concert venue and
Cokesbury.
Cokesbury is a venue and, yeah, okay.
So is it a good or a bad idea in permitted or unpermitted that we could use the banner that scrolls across the Anancock Town website to start and using it as at least one method of communication to get this information out to these various groups, because we'll miss, by definition, we'll miss some folks.
Yeah, go ahead, Debbie, go ahead.
No, I think probably mailing, you know, you're just relying, you're sort of assuming that they're gonna go to the website and look at the banner. Cause we, I mean, you would be surprised with text messages, emails, website, many people will still come to us and tell us they don't.
Just thinking.
I mean, this is a little different than like.
Yeah, well, you know what, and it doesn't matter what you send out, I'm speaking from long and bitter experience, you can send out communications in 14 different ways, and someone will come in and say, I had no idea this was going on. So you just do the best you can, and you do the best you can. I
I'm just
think,
thinking multiple modes.
yeah, multiple modes, and well, let's start with these groups, since I think economic development is a really big topic. So we'll start with these groups, and then we'll see how we go along, how we move along. Does that sound like a plan? Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? Jim, do you have anything to report at this point?
No, I was waiting for the list of assignments and the schedule. I'll start working on it.
Okay.
We do need to improve the zoning maps and the zoning ordinance.
Yes.
And this proposed rezoning is a good example of something somebody wants to do and we're not prepared
We're not.
to do something like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me get with you and we can talk about a schedule. I'll
Okay.
call you and
Yeah.
then we'll talk about a schedule that seems realistic. Okay. All right. Okay, I think that's it unless anybody wants to add to the discussion we just had. Everybody feel like they had heard? Okay, town manager report. Got anything to report there? Nope. Okay. Any other public comments? It's the other public comment time. No?
Well, I think it's great that you have, Paul working on some ideas to entice new businesses to come to Onancock. And not only Paul, OMS, everybody's working on this, but I think focusing on that. And I think you need an ombudsman. Once you have somebody who is really interested, you almost need someone to take it a little further and add some personal interest, almost a salesperson, to make sure they get all the information that they need. So that's something to consider.
Okay, commissioner comments. Any comments? John, you got anything? Jeff got anything? Cindy, you got anything? No?
I think I mentioned at a previous meeting about getting an Hancock email address.
Yes, I was gonna bring that up for my comment. I would like to have it, but may we have Onancock email addresses?
Everybody's.
Yeah. Because my email is so full of
Yeah, mine is just, I know,
online ordering and everything else.
know.
It would be nice to just have where we can share information easily, not have to scroll.
yeah,
through.
and not have to, is that possible, Debbie? Can we have email addresses? Okay, what do you need from us? Just what,
It'll be your first name dot last name @onancock.com.
okay, and is there a password or anything we're gonna have to get into? Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. So we'll get that set up and then we'll have, and then those will be our listed email addresses. Yeah, I'd appreciate it too, because I mean, I'm busily trying to knock out, it's amazing, all this stuff I didn't ask for. Yeah, that was my comment too, was I'd
Okay,
like to
good.
have an email address. Paul, do you have any other comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, we need to move to a closed session now to discuss a real estate matter as allowed by, I don't have the full proper statement, but as allowed by section 2.2.3711 3. So, okay, that'll do for the moment. So we need to go to closed session.
You need a second.
I need a second. Who wants to second me on that? Oops, I got several. Third. Okay. All right, we have to go in the back.
Oh, I need to vote on going into session? Oh, okay, thank you. This is my first time with a closed session.
It's a motion like.
It's a
any other.
motion. All right. All in favor?
I.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm learning. Okay.
Be back.
Are we,
We'll be back.
are we moving into the other room?
I think we're moving in the other room, but I'm just gonna leave